In a fantasy world, I could do all the hobbies that I'm interested in, but in reality, I don't have enough time to do them all. And if you're a guy like me who has ADHD, who does the life cycle of being interested, diving deep into it, doing it, then getting sick of it and moving on to the next one, you probably can relate to this. There's just something so intriguing and fun and exciting about getting into a new hobby. For example, I spent an entire winters hitting about 300 balls a day in the golf simulator trying to get better at golf. Didn't work, but I did it. I went through a phase in college where I tried to make concrete lamps. I even bought a vintage pocket watch because I thought that I was gonna get into that. I did not. I have one vintage pocket watch. If you want it, we're doing an auction in the comments right now. Just throw an offer out. And if you're a guy like me, you got a laundry list of hobbies that you've either tried or wanted to get into, and today we are gonna dive headfirst into all these hobbies and decide which one's the best, which one's the worst, which one's maybe in the sweet spot. So I dusted off my geometry lessons from high school and I made a compass for all of us to look at today. When you're making a compass like this, you gotta figure out what is the X and Y axes. So I came to the conclusion that there are two things that can make or break a hobby. Number one, the difficulty of the hobby, and number two, the barrier of entry into the hobby. Is it extremely difficult and fulfilling, or is it too hard to where it's not fun anymore? And then you got barrier of entry. Does it cost a lot of money? Is it actually 100% free? These are the questions you gotta be asking every single time you wanna get into a new hobby. And today we're gonna break it down and we're gonna come away with a nice little compass. One of my goals for this video today is to find out where the sweet spot is on this compass. Probably somewhere just below the x-axis, but right of the y-axis. So now that the stage is set, we are going to get into our first hobby, and that hobby is fishing. I feel like fishing deserves a round of applause. I think it's one of those things that everyone's had an experience with it, whether it's your dad teaching you or your grandpa teaching you, or maybe you had to learn all by yourself. It's a hobby that can bring people together. It's fun because you can do it with your relatives, with your buddies, your kids, your wife. Fishing brings people together. I think that's what can be fun about it. But then on the other side, it's also a phenomenal hobby to do by yourself. And honestly, there's probably half of the audience is like, I don't like fishing with nobody. One thing about this hobby though is that it can get you in trouble with the wife. If you're spending too much time on the riverbank or out on the lake, she might not love that. Just ask Brad Paisley how that turned out for him. All right, so let's put it on the compass here. Fishing, in terms of barrier of entry, it is low. A lot of people can get into it. You don't need a ton of equipment, but you do need equipment. And you also need to live by a place that you can fish. In terms of the difficulty scale, very challenging if you want to catch big fish, but it also has a floor that's pretty low to where if you got a 6-year-old nephew just trying to catch sunfish, he can do that all day long. So I think I'm gonna put fishing right there. Pretty low barrier of entry, but difficult, but not rip your hair out difficult. It's a relaxing hobby. Next hobby on our list is sports cards. Just like almost everyone on this list, I have dabbled in this hobby. I actually am not that proud of it, but I am because listen to this shit. Kyler Murray was a rookie that year, and I bought a hobby box and I pulled it, and I pulled 2 auto rookie cards in the same box, and then I never bought any more sports cards again after that. Sports cards though is crazy because it started as just a fun thing for kids to do with their buddies. Go to the store with mom or dad and pick up some sports cards. Fast forward 20 years and people have this as a full-time job now. And if fishing is the good type of gambling, I would say that sports cards can end up in the bad type of gambling. You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars and not make any money from it. With that being said, let's get it on the compass here. Barrier of entry, anyone can do it. Kids have done it, adults do it. In reality, all you need is what? If you buy a little box, what, 30 bucks? Yeah. You know, 30 bucks ain't bad. Now, obviously, to do that over and over again, it adds up. Probably more expensive than fishing. The two biggest barrier of entries for sports cards is 1, money, and 2, the knowledge on what even to buy. And I feel like there's a learning curve and kind of a barrier of entry to where if you don't know that going into it, you're gonna burn a lot of money. And for that reason, I think the barrier entry is a little bit higher. In terms of easy and hard, it's really easy to break open a pack of cards, slide it in a sleeve, slide it in a hard case thing, and send it off to PSA. And so for that reason, I'm gonna put sports cards right here on the compass. Pretty easy to do skill-wise, but a much higher barrier of entry. Next on our list is video games, and this is a hobby that is actually quite robust. And video games are just so popular because you can do it alone, you can do it with your buddies. And when I start thinking about video games, why are they the #1 hobby in the world? And I think it's because video games are perfectly engineered to be the right amount of difficulty and the right amount of barrier entry to whoever they're targeting. You want to be on an esports team, you can spend as much money on your computer, your setup, your monitor, all of that, or you can be like Tyler's grandma who just has an old iPod with a free game on it. And the thing is they're both having the same amount of fun at completely different skill levels. They know how to toe the line of how difficult for it to be in order to keep you just coming back day after day after day. And so let's put this hobby on the compass. And honestly, where this one goes, it might be where the sweet spot is, but we'll see. I think in terms of real video games, the barrier entry is a little bit higher because you do need something to play it on. And we're not talking boomer games here. You either need a console or a PC, and then you also need to buy the game. I mean, you gotta be prepared to spend $600-700 on a new console or even $1,500 on a nice PC setup. In terms of difficulty, video games nail it better than anything I've ever seen in my entire life. So I'm gonna put video games right here. I don't think it's in the middle because if something was in the middle, it would be disinteresting. I think in order for a hobby to be really interesting, it does need to be difficult. It does need to challenge you. It can't be just right down the middle. Our next hobby on the list is Bushcraft, and shout out to the legend, Luke from the Outdoor Boys channel. It's a hobby that's much more fun to watch than I feel like a lot of times it is to do because of how hard it would be to even get into it. Bushcraft is interesting because you can get into it very easily in terms of how much it costs, because essentially you could just like have like a saw. That's kind of it, and you could go and survive in the woods. That's kind of what Bushcraft is all about. But if you're gonna do it right, you need the pack, a warm sleeping bag, all that stuff, so it can get really expensive. If we put Bushcraft on the compass, I am gonna do Bushcraft doing and Bushcraft watching, because I think they're two different hobbies. Bushcraft doing, the barrier of entry is high. I don't even know where I would begin to go do Bushcraft. I either need to buy some land. Yeah, I gotta go to a national park. But also the other part of the barrier entry is like how much knowledge you need to know to be able to like survive. Oh, and then the difficulty. I don't know if you guys have watched any Bushcraft videos, but Bushcraft is just sawing wood for structure or a fire. So for that reason, this baby's going way up top and way right. Now, watching Bushcraft, the barrier of entry is you just need a YouTube app download on your phone, so that's pretty low. And so for that reason, I'm put it right here. So shout out to the people who actually want to do Bushcraft, so us who have the hobby of watching Bushcraft have some nice, easy, relaxing television before bed. The next hobby up is golfing, and this one is maybe the one I've spent the most time on this list doing. Golf is awesome because you can get a group of 4 guys, go out there and just forget about the world. What's funny about golf is it was pretty nerdy and lame up until COVID, and then COVID, everyone was like, oh shit, this is something I can do outside, and holy crap, golf is sweet. And now you got golf YouTube channels, you got the Live Tour popping up, trying to make golf cool and be cool. And if you'd have told me 15 years ago that everyone would want to play golf, you could have knocked me over with a feather. A lot of downsides to golf though. It is expensive, and it takes up a lot of time. Kind of like fishing, it can make your wife kind of mad, and that's kind of the eternal struggle between husbands and wife, is how much time you spend on the golf course. What makes golf very interesting is it is one of the most difficult things and hobbies to do on this list. Very, very rarely can you just show up to a course and be just naturally good at golf. So let's put golf on the compass. Anytime you're doing a hobby where you leave the course saying, I'm never doing this hobby again because I did so bad and it's so difficult, you gotta put it far right. Barrier of entry is you gotta have a course by, yes, you can buy a cheap set of clubs, but like, you're still gonna be spending $200, $300, $400. Gotta buy the clothes, the shoes, the whole get up. And because of the difficulty in the barrier of entry, I'm putting golf right here. And now that I look at it on the compass, it makes so much sense why I absolutely hate golf, but I also love golf. Next hobby on our list is grilling. Grilling is an interesting hobby because the people who benefit most from this hobby are the people not even doing it. It's the people who are just showing up watching someone grill. You don't need much. Like, you actually could just start a fire and be able to grill something over a fire. Even you can get a charcoal grill and be good at it for 80 bucks. Obviously, you need to be buying meats and all of that, but you're gonna buy food to eat anyways. So I think one thing that's interesting about grilling is, surprisingly, there's a lot of ego involved with grilling. There's somewhat of an ego involved with being a grill master. Let's put it on the block. I would say the barrier of entry is lower than fishing. You can do it right in your backyard. You can get an $80 grill. Obviously, if you're gonna be doing high quality grilling, it's much more difficult. But in terms of just grilling a good steak, I feel like once you kind of know what you're doing, it's not too difficult. So I'd say grilling with right there. Would you say? Yeah. It's a good spot for it? Yeah. Well, it's pretty low, not too difficult. It's obviously not the easiest. It's not like watching Bushcraft, but... And if we were gonna put the hobby of watching someone grill on this, it's gotta be one of the most difficult things on planet Earth to do, but obviously anyone could do it. So I'm gonna toss that bottom right. The next on our list is woodworking. Now, woodworking is somewhat of a solo venture hobby because I feel like most people who do woodworking like to just be in the shop by themselves making something. But where it kind of brings in other people is when you're giving stuff as gifts. And I think that's what people like a lot about woodworking, is I'm gonna make something and give it to someone. Yeah, downsides, it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. And I don't have a lot of time and I don't have a lot of patience. So that's probably why I've been doing it the least. And if you've ever done woodworking, you know about 50% of the time is going to the store to get materials that you forgot, or waiting for glue to dry. So let's toss it on the compass. I think that woodworking, to get into it, you need to spend some money on tools. But it's not quite as difficult in golf because you don't leave the shop and be like, I'm never gonna do woodworking again. So I think I'm gonna put woodworking right there. Litmus test on whether or not something, how difficult it is do you talk about quitting a lot because of how difficult it is? I don't think that you feel that quite like you do with golf. The next hobby up is history. Yes, just history itself. Learning about history, watching historical documentaries. For me, history as a hobby is a complete accidental hobby. I have never set out to be like, wow, I'm gonna do the hobby of history today. It's always that I stumble upon it. And although I think there's very few people that are like, would identify as history being a main hobby of theirs, I think almost every guy is interested in history. It's almost like you have a main hobby and then history is just everyone's side chick. And there's also a fine line between history and conspiracies. I feel like conspiracies can almost be its own hobby. So if we put history on the compass, it's a very low barrier of entry. All you need is an internet connection. You can be learning about history, watching history. Now, the one thing that makes it a little bit more difficult is to remember all of the history stuff and also getting the facts right. Nothing's worse than babbling on about something you learned and then you got it all wrong. It's just the worst. Very easy to get into, but like I said, it's not the easiest thing in the world because there's a lot of information flying around. You gotta remember it. Next hobby on our list is tech, which tech can be like a very broad thing. When I think of a tech hobby, I'm thinking of YouTubers like Marquez Brownlee or Linus Sebastian. Guys that are interested in all the techie features of stuff, as well as being able to like build some of that out. Like those guys could build a computer from scratch or make their own home theater setup and it sound really good and be really good. Tech is cool because these guys know how to troubleshoot. There's just something manly and cool about when a problem arises in the technology sector, being able to diagnose it and be able to fix it is kind of badass. Let's put tech on the docket here. The barrier of entry can be quite low, but also I think that it can be very difficult. It's kind of wild that like knowing what television to buy is somewhat of a skill in 2025. And so for that reason, I'm gonna put it right here. The next hobby on our list is physical fitness. Things like running, hiking, yoga, weightlifting, all of that stuff I'm kind of just combined into one. It's really strange because physical fitness matters a lot to your health. Like if you work out, you're gonna feel really good. But I think part of that has also drawn a lot of cult members to it. It's like all of the basic white girls with their Stanley cups going to solid core classes. It feels a little, you know, So let's put it on the compass. I would say that the barrier of entry is very low. You can just go for a walk. You can just start running. Mentally, this is a very difficult hobby. So in that sense, we're gonna make a second fitness, be fitness, parentheses, mentally. Barrier of entry is high, the difficulty is high, there we go. Another hobby we're gonna dive into is music. The hobby of music for me personally is one, phenomenal, and two, very depressing. One, because I do love music. I love listening to music. I love watching people who are good at music. But then I also, on the other side, want to be really good at music, but I have no talent. I have no musical talent, and that can be depressing for me, but I like to listen to music. What's really cool about that type of hobby is there's also the payoff of performing is an unbelievable high. So let's toss this sucker on the old compass here. In terms of barrier entry for music, it is quite literally a whole nother language. So the barrier of entry is, can you speak the language or can you not? And that alone brings the barrier of entry up much higher. So that being said, I'm gonna toss music right there. Next hobby on our list is cars. We've talked a lot about trucks on this YouTube channel. If you haven't seen those, you can check out that YouTube video right there, or maybe this one right there. Cars as a hobby has one of the best coolness factors on this whole list. You know how to work with cars, tinker with cars, know which ones to buy, which ones not. That is just a cool hobby to have. I feel like cars are also very similar to fishing, to where a lot of people learn about cars from their dad or their grandpa. It's kind of passed down knowledge. You can do by yourself like fishing, but you also can be very fun to work with someone else on a car. It is a hobby that if I was into it, my wife would be pretty mad if I was coming home with cars that I was gonna fix up and they were just laying around. I didn't have enough time to finish a project before I started a new one. I think that she might divorce me. And like the car guys that I do know, they love the difficulty of working on cars. They love the idea that something isn't going to work on the first try. I feel like at the true core of guys who love cars, they just love problem solving, and what has more problems than cars? So let's throw it on the compass here. Okay, so you gotta have at least a few $1,000s plus all the tools and parts that you're gonna buy over the years. Like, very expensive hobby, takes a lot of time, and you gotta even have space for it. Like if you live in an apartment and don't have a garage, like where are you gonna work on this? You gotta have a whole nother shop that you're renting. I do think working on cars is a difficult hobby, but I do feel like there is somewhat of a learning curve that once you push past that initial learning curve, understand how engines work and cars work, it's a little easier than one may think. So I think I'm gonna put cars right there, and like I said before, it's a cool hobby. It's definitely difficult, higher barrier of entry, but like I can get why guys get obsessed with cars. All right, we now have our guys' hobbies compass all laid out, and what's kind of interesting is it does like a little almost like a front end of a bell curve. When I look at the compass initially, it's all the stuff that people are like truly obsessed with is always right of the difficulty line. The more difficult the hobby is, the more willing someone is to invest their time and money and resources into it. If they know that there's going to be a higher payoff in terms of satisfaction because they did something difficult, they're much more willing to invest their time and money into it. So I'd love to know what you guys thought of my compass here. I'm sure that a lot of you will disagree with it, and I want to hear that. I want to know where you would have put some of these at. Would love to know what you guys think of this. Let me know if we missed your hobby and where you would maybe put that hobby on the list. Share it with your car buddy or your golf foursome. See what they think. Hit the like button, subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.